everyone, Peter Racy here from Foundation Expo 88 YouTube channel. It's the 4th of March and I can't believe that a few months have gone past in this year 2021 without me having a monthly chat to my co-spirator in living the title of Leisure in the Age of Technology, Lawrie Smith. Good morning, Lawrie.
Good morning, Peter. It's good to be back.
Well, and I know that you've been working very hard, because the only reason we are talking is because we are talking to another 3 or 4 in actual fact, series of papers that you've now documented in the series that's going into the John Oxley Library. And the first one this morning is going to be in relation to the Canadian precinct. And you've got a beautiful photo behind you showing the entrance into the monorail. And as I understand it, that was probably the busiest entrance onto the monorail. Certainly it appears to be the largest queuing facility.
Yeah, that's true, because the Canadian precinct was very close to the main entrance of Melbourne Street. And in fact, you walk down the main promenades as you went through the entry styles, and almost immediately to your left on the riverside, there was the Canadian precinct began. And the central element as you approached it was this monorail. And everybody, when the gates opened, made a beeline for the monorail station, either this end or the other end, so that they could really get a bird's eye view over the Expo site, which it was a very excellent way to get a first impression and work out what you're going to do for the rest of the day. Yes. And obviously the queuing that you can see behind me there was a substantial thing. And the great thing about that position was that you could look around you and see the wonderful environment that Canada had created there as the forecourt, and this large precinct, this large plaza, which they could come into the Canadian Pavilion once you'd finished with the monorail, for instance. So it was a good spot.
So, and one of the very of the Canadian precinct, as in each every precinct we're going to discover this morning, is the choice of the trees that then became the central feature of the landscaping that then enhanced yours and John Truscott's vision of the landscaping, of the good mix between the treed landscaping, the plant landscaping, the shrubbing, and the beautiful sculptures, and in this particular case, quite amazing cultural totems that were on evidence.
That's true, and as with all of the various precincts on Expo, what we wanted to do was to create this feeling of having arrived in this World Exposition in another part of the world. And Canada, of course, being very, very different climatically from Brisbane, being a place that's typified by the conifer trees that you can see behind me, and maple, their national floral emblem. Their conifers don't grow in the subtropics. They have their temperate ones, which look similar to the ones behind me, which an Australian tree, and that's our Norfolk Island pine, and also our hoop pine were used as well. And the Canadian maple, the substitute for that was the liquid amber tree. And that gives us the autumn foliage, those wonderful copper tones and red tones that we get with the deciduous foliage on the maple. And so we got that as well. Precinct, as you said, those 2 primary species that we used to create the Canadian precinct really helped to just signify that this was Canada, a very different locality to Brisbane. And of course, it was signified by the wonderful totems that they brought, those wonderful sculptural pieces that just were so dramatic. And it was just an amazing place to be.
And there's a good story, an interesting story, and a sad story in relation to those totems. The sad story is that Ross McKinnon saved quite a number, and they were a feature of the top lake at the Mount Cootha Botanical Gardens, or now Brisbane Botanic Gardens. And unfortunately, in 2013, they were at death's door, and I didn't realise that they were so beyond it. And just after the 25th anniversary, were actually chopped down and wood chipped, which is a great shame, because while the bottom of them were rotten, the top part of it were not, although they had aged and they were fairly nondescript at that stage. But there is another one which is in the forecourt of the Canadian Embassy in Canberra, and that is still kept in very good condition. And from recollection, it is the one that's in the photo that is now behind me, that one. In amongst these was the human factor series. Now, at this end of the Riverwalk, there are those two beautiful little boys fishing. Now,
Yes.
don't recall anywhere else in the Canadian precinct other Artbuster pieces, but there may well have been. But it really goes, that photo behind me that will come up now, look at that. I just think that it's spectacular and just shows the great value add that John Underwood's Artbuster pieces put onto the site. And we'll talk about the Artbuster pieces in relation to the UK and the boardwalk as we sort of go through the discussions this morning. So I know that you love the Artbuster pieces.
Yes, very much. Yes, they really were the, in some ways, the icing on the cake, because they really linked the story of our Australian culture in so many ways, our working culture, and brought that, not just in cartoons, but because it was really quite an amazing collection of art pieces that that you found as you walked through the site, all related to their particular sites. And that was the important thing, that they weren't just plumped down. They were put in a particular location, like the boys fishing in the Brisbane River, that everybody could relate to, whether you were a boy fishing or whether you were a gardener or whether you're a timber getter or all of those other wonderful things that are part of the Australian lifestyle and work style, and some around the world. It's good.
Yeah, it was excellent. In some of the photos from that Artbuster into this particular narrative. Now, Lawrie, I think we'll just finish off up on this particular topic, and we'll be back in a minute. And everyone, we've really got a very interesting morning discussion to go with the UK to come and the boardwalk to come. Thank you and good morning.